The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Thexler raised his primary appendage, signaling victory. 300 cycles of brutal warfare had finally concluded with the Krill Dominion's surrender. The treaty sat before them, glowing with digital signatures from every major civilization in the known galaxy. "It is done," Thexler announced, his translator converting his chittering language into universal standard. "The bloodiest conflict in galactic history has ended. We can rebuild. We can heal." Murmurs of relief rippled through the assembled delegates. The Avakeen, crystalline beings who communicated through light pulses, shimmered with what could only be described as joy. The Torvan representative, a massive arthropod, clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. Even the usually stoic Velcrons allowed themselves a moment of celebration. Then the doors exploded inward. Not metaphorically. The reinforced titanium alloy doors, designed to withstand planetary bombardment, simply ceased to exist in a shower of molten metal and superheated gas. Through the smoking entrance walked a single figure. It stood on two legs, relatively small compared to most species present, covered in what appeared to be primitive cloth and metal plating. Its face was obscured by a dark visor, but two eyes gleamed behind the transparent material with an intensity that made several delegates recoil. "Human," Thexler whispered, the word itself seeming to drop the temperature in the room. The being stopped in the center of the chamber, its boots echoing against the marble floor with each measured step. When it spoke, its voice was calm, almost conversational, which somehow made it more terrifying. "I heard you signed a peace treaty." "The war is over," Thexler said, trying to maintain his diplomatic composure despite the tremor in his voice. "The Krill have surrendered. There will be no more fighting." The human tilted its head slightly. "That's interesting. Because 3 days ago the Krill Dominion dropped a biological weapon on the human colony of New Terra. Population, 4 million. Current survivors, none." The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted over one another, some in horror, others in denial. The Krill ambassador, a reptilian creature named Skrar, hissed in protest. "Lies, we signed the ceasefire 2 weeks ago. Our forces have been recalled." The human reached into its armor and pulled out a small device. A holographic projection filled the chamber, showing a peaceful world with blue oceans and green continents. Then the image shifted, showing clouds of sickly yellow gas descending onto cities, people running, falling, dying. "This footage is 4 days old," the human said quietly. "The weapon took 72 hours to kill everyone, men, women, children, all of them." Silence. "We didn't know," Thexler said finally. "This must be a rogue faction, a splinter group refusing to accept." "It was authorized by Supreme Commander Vrask himself," the human interrupted, producing another hologram showing intercepted military communications. "The same Vrask who signed your pretty treaty. He thought he could get one last victory before the ink dried. Make humanity think twice about expansion in this sector." Skrar, the Krill ambassador, remained frozen. Whether in shock or guilt, it was impossible to tell. The human began walking again, moving toward the treaty table with predatory grace. Every delegate in its path scrambled away. "Here's what's going to happen," the human said, reaching the table. "You're going to tear up this treaty. All of you. Because if humanity is still at war, then none of your civilizations can claim neutrality when we respond. You cannot threaten the entire Galactic Council." Thexler found his courage, drawing himself up to his full height. "We are 300 civilizations strong. Humanity is one species on the edge of known space." The human's laugh was devoid of humor. "You really don't know anything about us, do you?" The being tapped its wrist device and new images appeared. Krill warships, dozens of them, drifting as lifeless hulks in space. Then more. Krill military installations reduced to craters, supply lines severed, communications arrays destroyed. "This happened in the last 36 hours, the human explained. "While you were celebrating peace, we were preparing for justice. We've already crippled 60% of the Krill military infrastructure. In another week, we'll own their homeworld." "Impossible," Skrar finally spoke, his voice barely a whisper. "Our forces number in the billions. Our fleets are burning," the human finished. "You made a mistake that every species in this chamber made during your war. You fought with rules, honor, restraint." The being's voice dropped to something cold and ancient. "Humans abandoned those luxuries when you killed our children." Thexler felt his primary heart skip a beat. He had studied human history, had read the fragmented reports that made it past their borders. A species that had nearly destroyed itself multiple times yet somehow always survived. A civilization that turned everything into weapons. A race that, when pushed to the edge, didn't break, they broke everything else. "What do you want?" he asked, abandoning diplomacy for pragmatism. The human was quiet for a long moment. New Terra had a monument in its capital city. On it were words from one of our old wars. "We will never forget. 4 million people won't get to remember anything now." The being turned to face the entire council. "So I'll remember for them. And I'll make sure the Krill never forget either." "We can offer reparations," Skrar said desperately. "Resources, technology, territory. We don't want reparations." The human moved toward the Krill ambassador with deliberate slowness. "We want an example. So the next time some species thinks about targeting human civilians, they'll remember what happened to the Krill Dominion." "You're talking about genocide," Thexler breathed. "No," the human corrected. "I'm talking about consequences. There's a difference." The being paused at the shattered doorway, looking back one final time. "You have 72 hours to evacuate non-combatants from Krill space. After that, anyone remaining is complicit." As the human disappeared into the corridor, the chamber remained frozen in stunned silence. Finally, Thexler moved to the treaty document, his appendage hovering over the dissolution command. The Velcron delegate spoke up, its mechanical voice uncertain. "If we don't stop them, they'll destabilize the entire sector." Thexler looked at the hologram still playing in the center of the chamber, showing the last moments of New Terra, children holding their parents, parents holding their children. "All of them dying together. If we try to stop them," he said quietly, pressing the dissolution command and watching 300 cycles of diplomatic effort vanish, "they'll destabilize us." The treaty disappeared from the display. The war was back on, and for the first time in galactic history, every civilization in the chamber understood what it meant to be truly afraid of humans.